Namaste and greetings. I, Nikita Bhardwaj, researcher at IMPRI, Impact and Policy Research Institute, Prabhav एवं नीति अनुसंधान संस्थान नई दिल्ली, extend my warmest welcome to you all to IMPRI #Web Policy Learning. Today, Day 20 of Law and Public Policy Youth Fellowship marks the fourth day of Law and Public Policy Action Research Fieldwork Certificate Training Program, an online national monsoon school program, a 1-month online immersive action research fieldwork certificate training program. This program is organized by IMPRI, Impact and Policy Research Institute, New Delhi. The chair for the program is Professor Vibhuti Patel, visiting distinguished professor at IMPRI, and the fellowship lead advisor and expert legal hands-on sessions is Advocate Dr. Shalu Nigam, visiting senior fellow IMPRI. The distinguished experts include Sri Sandeep Chachra, Professor Vibhuti Patel, Advocate Dr. Shalu Nigam, Advocate Dr. Vaida Nayanar, Professor Mukul Ashar, Professor Uday Shankar, Shri Udit Mishra, Dr. Nivedita P. Haran, Shri Bhartendra Singh Baswan, Dr. Purnima Chauhan, Advocate Dr. Albertina Almeida, Dr. Gladstone Xavier, Professor Aruna Roy, Advocate Audrey de Mello, Dr. Kaustav K. Bandopadhyay, Advocate Muralini Deshmukh, Professor Sharmila Goghe, Advocate Flavia Agnes, Dr. Rashmi Singh, Mr. Debaditya Sinha, Professor Swaran Singh, Advocate Lara Jasani, Professor Anil K. Gupta, Justice Ajit K. Singh, Mr. Himanshu Shekhar, Dr. Amar Jasani, Dr. Samyadeep Chattopadhyay, Mr. Bilal Khan, Shri Rajiv Ranjan Singh, Shri Tikender Singh Panwar, Shri Shailesh Gandhi, Dr. Simi Mehta, Advocate Abdul Hafiz Gandhi, Professor Amita Singh, Dr. Ajay Gudavarti, Shri Amit Dubey, Professor Sanghamitra Acharya, Dr. Y. Suresh Reddy, Advocate Sanchita N., and Shri Surendranath Tripathi. The conveners for this course are Dr. Simi Mehta, CEO and Editorial Director at IMPRI, Advocate Dr. Shalu Nigam, Visiting Senior Fellow IMPRI, and Dr. Arjun Kumar, Director at IMPRI. I welcome you all to this enlightening deliberation and thank you for putting your time, energy, and efforts into truly understanding the vital role and complex intricacies of legal and public policy frameworks. This course would equip the participants with the skills and knowledge required to conduct meaningful action research. Participants will immerse themselves in the intricacies of literature review, honing their skills and engaging in valuable discussions with esteemed experts in the field. We have also shared the course outline and reading resource documents in your email for your kind perusal. We'll be providing videos of each session for flexible learning at your pace and place. Before we start today's session, I would like to announce the housekeeping rules. It is imperative that you join the meeting on time. There will be a Q&A session after each presentation. Share your questions in the Q&A box and not in the chat box. The questions must not be posted as an anonymous attendee. Ensure that your questions are precise. Refrain from making general comments in the question to save time. Our session for day 4 includes topics of qualitative research and reporting by Professor Vibhuti Patel, report writing and editorial guidance by Dr. Simi Mehta, interactive discussion session 6 by Advocate Dr. Shalu Nigam. To start the session, I would like to invite Professor Vibhuti Patel for her opening chair remarks.
We have now entered the 7th week of our course, and a lot we have learned. And in the previous recap, where 3 presentations were made by Bilal Khan on housing rights, basic human necessity of the citizens, and also important access to livelihood. And he also quoted several UN covenants. Dr. Shri Rajiv Ranjan Singh, he explained the hierarchy in the police system and how the criminal justice system operates and how they work 24/7. And he ended with the empowerment of women and girls to curb increasing gender-based violence. And the last presentation by Shri Tikender Singh Panwar was extremely exhaustive, which covered the more than 100 years of India's history, started from colonial times to the present. And he also discussed so many important questions and mind-boggling issues faced by the urban development and the right to stay in the city, the new approach that emerged because of the French philosopher Henri Lefebvre's work on urban right to urban spaces that completely changed the way urban development used to take place. And he also told the whole Nehruvian model, mixed model, how the public sector was playing pivotal role, and with privatization in the housing sector. First, it was a state taking responsibility, then the question of public-private partnership came, then the state also in the 70s came up with the low-income group, middle-income group, higher-income group housing scheme, and now we are talking complete privatization of housing sector, which is creating massive permanent and expanding, continuously burgeoning slums in the cities. There are 300 cities listed for smart city mission, in which also the focus is more on technology and physical infrastructure rather than the human development. And that's what he demanded, that he criticized the 2041 master plan and demanded that public should reclaim spaces. Decision making on urban affairs must be done by the neighborhood committees and the representatives of the communities, and we should orient people towards the policy paradigm. Citizens have to take active role, and he condemned the forcible evacuation of street vendors for the G20 quote-unquote beautification. And I think yesterday I saw the video where you all discussed for 1 hour, I think, about the various issues and the problems that you are facing about your research project. And Dr. Arjun Kumar and Dr. Shalu Nigam, they tried to provide the support in terms of how to go about in this thing. And today it starts with my presentation on qualitative research methodology.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah.
And now I request you to start with the first session of the day on the topic qualitative research and reporting. Over to you, ma'am.
So here, is it visible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Okay, so when we talk about the qualitative research and reporting, earlier also it has been discussed that even now you have had already 4 sessions on your action research program, and what importance does it have? And even your research projects, most of the research projects are focusing on qualitative research when it comes to primary data collection, while you are going to also get the existing data sets which are created by official sources and also by the various NGOs and think tanks. So when we talk about the qualitative research, when we talk, there are the parameters of qualitative research, which include and the way in which qualitative research is done. Now you are familiar that it can be either case study of as an institution or individual or communities. You can also do historical studies, like in the department, historical studies which are done with qualitative research methodology. You go through the archives, you go through the gazettes, you go through the various laws that emerged in the history or various episodes of the history, and you try to create through your research and through your evidences based on archives and the library research, you try to analyze the historical studies. Action research studies, where you have a stake as a researcher, you are personally involved in the action research, and there is an agenda, transformatory agenda. And also when you have phenomenological studies, you try to understand the phenomena, how the unfolding of the phenomena takes place, that you are documenting. There are very good studies also on phenomenology, done with phenomenological. One is the uprooted, that where when the Terminal 2 of Bombay Airport was created, how the people were displaced and relocated to other place, more than 100,000 people, and what all happened, that everything, the whole process, right from the time order came till what happened to people when they were taken to the new area, everything, the processes are documented with all the nuances and dialogues and case studies and very vivid description. So these are the kind of phenomenological studies. In fact, the Sainath's book, Everybody Loves Grew Drought, you can call it phenomenological, because he went to the drought areas. He personally, whatever he had seen, he wrote and narrated it. It was a research project awarded. He got the award from Times of India Foundation, and he conducted this research. And then we have ethnographic studies. You stay with the community, like you can call the walking with the migrant, the study you can download from Indian Social Institute Bangalore's website, where they were with the migrant community. The researchers were walking, they were providing them support in terms of water and food and carrying their babies. And when they were sitting, when they got exhausted and they were sitting, that was the time they were asking the question. It was a open-ended question, because so many things which researchers had not imagined, that also emerged and they're included in it. So you community, you stay closely with the community, you are in their proximity and you do this study. The grounded theory studies are that you don't go with the theoretical framework or already existing theoretical framework. Your theory comes from what you see. You theorize after what you see at the ground level, and it is the ground level reality, the first-hand experience, that helps you to articulate your theoretical formulations and theoretical analytical framework. So these are the important aspects. Now, historical context of this research method, how come qualitative research gained so much of popularity, even if you see that even during this pandemic, most of the studies which are rapid assessment studies, they had a very strong component of qualitative research, which helped the planners and policymakers and the various nation states to come out with how to address the problem of pandemic, what kind of challenges and miseries and the problems which pandemic had created in the health sector or in industry or in people living in the slums or people living in the gated community. And accordingly, the measures were taken by the state, by the local self-government bodies. So in grounded theory, when we do this qualitative research, we need to understand that it was the social consciousness of the 70s which challenged, like people, there were anti-war movement in all over Europe, America, Canada, Australia, New Zealand. In most of the post-colonial countries where economic inequality of capitalism created by the capitalist development, I think you have heard 4 to 5 lectures about how capitalist economy functions, and the social unrest that was created and the new social movements emerged of the youth, of the ethnic minorities, of the religious minorities, of the working class. They brought in totally whatever knowledge or whatever theories were provided by the existing framework within the educational institution was challenged. The two philosophers, Paulo Freire and Ivan Illich in Latin America, they were the liberation theologists. They also talked about the conscientization, that you work with the people, you through in your discourses and interactive session, you come out with what are the reasons for the human miseries, what are the reasons for the challenges they are facing, and then you try to collectively come up with the solution, and it's collective consciousness that emerges, that feeds into your research. So social consciousness is very important, direct relation to the issue of power and control, because who holds the power, who are creating this problem, which are the vested interests different stake groups have, and who tries to control your knowledge, your resources, your money, and you come up with the cultural understanding of the people, what kind of social organization they have, what kind of labor processes, labor relations they have, and what kind of colonial trajectory or the historical trajectory this particular community has. And all these methodologies have contributed a great deal to Dalit studies, cultural studies, post-colonial studies, gender studies, LGBTQI, queer studies. All those who have been at the margin of the society because of their social positioning of intersectional vulnerability, they all have used this kind of a critical analysis. And person like Foucault or Matkin or Brodon, they also say that the dominant ideology, the dominant discourse you have, hegemonic discourse, because they are the ones who control state, who control legal system, who control media, and they manufacture knowledge and they manufacture consent, even and what you need to do, which has nothing to do with your local reality. And that's why what you need is a grounded research and action research. A recognition that meaning is indeterminate and socially constructed. The way positivist would say that we have a standard interview schedule, we get the quantitative data, we have a huge number in our study, and that's why whatever says final. Qualitative research doesn't accept that. It accepts that every research, there is a aspect which is missing is the nuanced understanding. And that nuanced understanding can come only when researcher and those who are respondent, we don't even call them subject, positivists would call them subject. We don't, in action research, they are the respondent, they are the stakeholder, they are the co-creator of knowledge. So when you do this grounded theory, or when you talk about the discourse analysis, there is a dominant discourse and there is a discourse of the subjugated. There is a knowledge of the subjugated. For example, you read a gazette, you go to the archives and you read the gazette, and then you see that Royal Commission of Labour has written that Lakshmi, they went to visited mine in Madhya Pradesh, say in 1830 or 1850. And they write the report that here the workers were agitated because my underground mine workers were agitated because one woman mine worker had died falling in a hot water because she was dozing at the workplace. Now, this is what Royal Commission has written. But you ask the workers, when the testimony in Chhattisgarh or testimony in the local language, workers say that this worker, Lakshmi, she was not, she had to work for 12 hours on underground mining. The person who would replace Lakshmi did not come. So she had to work another 12 hours. And then again, it was her turn to work. Imagine a human person without food working for 36 hours would just collapse. So this is the dominant discourse says something that workers are lazy, they doze off at the workplace, while when you ask the workers, they said, no, it is the inhuman work condition. That is, so you can see so many recent studies on the migration. If you read the whole, the studies on migration, global studies, all of them, you would say that the state or the agents of the state or the employer have one narrative and the migrant workers, they have a different narrative. So this is the kind of dominant discourse versus the knowledge of the subjugated or the discourse of the subjugated population which Foucault talked about, because Foucault in all his books, History of Sexuality, Madness and Civilization, everywhere he just talked about that those who are at the top, they do victim blaming, but those who are suffering, they would just say people are lazy, they are drug addict, they are alcoholic, but who made them alcoholic, who made them drug addict? And even when it comes to child sexual abuse, the rationalization with the abuser gives that she seducted. No, there have been even novels written in a very, very using Freudian ideology of Electra complex and Oedipal complex. Even children have sexuality and they seduce. So all against that, the discourse analysis, that the knowledge of the subjugated, the powerlessness, the person who is controlled, that you bring out. And in that ethnography, participant observation, you go to a school, okay, one researcher is going to work on school education. So you just go to the school, just don't do anything, just remain in the class and see how children are behaving. And teacher would say, oh, my children are very disciplined. They don't even utter a word. Now, why don't they utter a word? Because are they scared of teacher? If teacher is using abusive language, if there is a corporal punishment, if there is a caste-based desegregation where Dalit children are made to sit at the back, and caste Hindu or caste upper caste children are made to sit, or tribal children are told you are good for nothing, you don't have brains. I'm talking about these sentences which have been actually used in the class. Okay, if you read the Indo-Dutch study done by Vacha, Setu, and the Indo-Dutch, this is supported by that, then this is what the researchers observed, how children were treated, or the Dalit children just being told to just sweep the floor, clean the campus, clean the toilet, and teacher screaming at them and saying, if children like you start studying, will our children maro jhadu? Will they be this? It is only our children who have right to. In fact, currently one WhatsApp video is also circulating about the school admission, where we have a 25% reserved seats for children from poverty groups. So this participation observation, in fact, the most important example of participation observation you can give is a ASER report, Annual Survey of Education. You can download it, where the researchers from ASER, and I think for that, Mr. Banerjee also got a Nobel Prize, and Professor Duflo and Professor Abhijit Banerjee, they got they did a random control trial. So there was they call it a closed group. Other one is called experimental group. In experimental group, they had given mobile to teacher, where and a teacher had to provide when they entered, and there was a biometric, and when they entered the class, when they left the class, and they also had to inform the district magistrate's office what was happening. And the researchers were also observing what was happening in the class, because there was a World Bank report which says that in the government schools in India, teachers report for work only for 15% of their annual time. Because so many teachers who are getting 7th pay salary in government schools, they would hire a local unemployed youth with 2,000, 3,000 rupees, and they would go to school only on the payday. So that was the data given to Abhijit Banerjee and Duflo. And what they did was the random control. So both qualitative method, and also they used the technology to see, and they said that after, and it was done in Rajasthan, which had one of the lowest literacy rate. And after this study, the experimental group, but teachers' participation was 85%. And because there was observation also, they were actually teaching mathematics and language and all that. And you can see Rajasthan has now a very, very good record of students' retention in the school, students' enrollment, not only enrollment, but absenteeism is also, teacher absenteeism has reduced. Now, the question of conversation, very, very important, that if a researcher converse instead of tick mark this thing, or a survey monkey that you send, or a Google form you send, if the researcher has a very deep conversation with the all stake groups, then the quality of research that comes out is very good. We were given 6 months to submit report on socioeconomic status of Muslims in Maharashtra. What we got was a metadata was given. There are 375 blocks in Maharashtra. Mantralaya gave us data about all quantitative data about schools and madrasas and health centers and enterprises and Paithani sari which they make. All that was given to us. What we needed to say that why there was such a high socioeconomic backwardness, and the indicators of socioeconomic backwardness were education, health, skill development, leadership, political participation, and why it was lower than that of Dalit, because in Maharashtra, Dalit movement is very strong. So in so many indicators, Dalit communities were much ahead of the Muslims in Maharashtra. So we had to do this work. What we did was we had a series of focus group discussions and conversations with leaders, with youth organization, with housewives, with elderly people, with the children, with schools, with banks which are nearby. And we gave that report, a comprehensive report based on qualitative, because we were told they had chosen these 5 experts who had a domain knowledge of 40 years of doing research in Maharashtra. Okay, so they said you can write your report based on your domain knowledge, but you can't write a story in research. No, you have to have a hardcore data. And how would it come? So in 6 months, with this kind of a mixed method, where we ourselves were involved in conversation with the various stakeholders, and metadata was given by the state government, and we came up with the report. You can even download that report. It is there in the website of Government of Maharashtra. So conversations analysis, then when they say that we don't accept, when we in our focus group discussion, housewives, they said that we have been told not to accept any letter coming to our home because they're poorest of the poor. So government letter would come in a brown paper. No, they said anytime it comes, never. Now some of these letters were very important because they were about scholarship for poor. But they did not. So when you have allocation of 299 crore rupees, and there is a 100% non-utilization of funds which are meant for scholarship or enterprise development, why did it happen? Because of fear of any official letter coming by post office or by speed post because they thought that it is arrest warrant. There was so much of fear that they would not accept any letter. The letter would bounce back to the government department. So when we wrote all these things, I said there are many other ways in which first building trust is very important in the community so that they avail the existing facilities. So narrative analysis is very important. And for every text, there is a context. No, as I told you, this example of mines in Madhya Pradesh where Royal Commission, what was the context? What was the colonial, what colonial rules wanted? At one level, there was a demand from the nascent trade union movement to come up with the labor standards and rules about underground mining and all that. And that is why in the British Parliament also, Labour Party had raised this issue of extremely deplorable condition of workers in the colonies. And they had also, there were no, all the rules were applicable only to white workmen. They used to call them white workmen. What we were called, we were not even called as human beings. We were called brown hand, black hand, yellow hand. Chinese workers were called yellow hand. We were called brown hand. So they were, I mean, in the report, the British bureaucrats would write. So that is the level of denial of humanity of the working class. So this is the context in which Royal Commission came to India. And then what we saw, the context was the condition of workers in the mines and the wildcat strikes that were happening, or the destruction that was taking place, workers using their equipments to destroy or attack the supervisor. All these things were result of extremely abject and deplorable condition of the working class. That's what emerged. So you can see so many economic history of paper industry, economic history of sugar industry, economic history of mine industry. If you read all those historical books, no, they are mostly published by Cambridge University Press. You can see they give, for every text there is a context. Now, coming to research approach in qualitative and action research is that when you do any theory building based on your action, actually what you are seeing at the ground level, you also test the theory with your hardcore data. So that means empirical evidences are very important. You need to have methodological skills, which you have been discussing in the 4 interactive sessions. What kind of methodological skills would be required with Dr. Arjun Singh, Arjun Kumar, Dr. Shalu Nigam, and myself have been telling you about for each and every research project. What kind of relative standards you would, when you say poor, rich, middle class, upper class, upper middle class, you have to define them in your research. Which bracket, how are you creating these different brackets, what kind of indicators you have created. And also, and they are across the disciplines, you have different measures. Theoretical skills, know-how that whatever you have read in your review of literature, you are critically reflecting on it. That when you talk about the history of life worlds of people and whatever existing literature, has it actually depicted the life worlds, or they have just given their own subjective interpretation of what is happening to the people. So that variety of research approaches and tools and techniques that you have, such as qualitative and quantitative data, when you do the triangulation, you do the statistical analysis, you do the experiments. In psychology, they do experiments, you do field survey research, and so what types of research are you using? One research method? Are you using 2-3 research methods? Are you triangulating multiple research methods? That has to be very clear. Now, premises of the research practices that you have in qualitative research, there are many theories. I'm just mentioning that so that you get the healthy curiosity for your further work, which is a constructivism. So constructivism is used in the educational research. They do you are constructing new knowledge. Feminism, which is committed to changing the power relation and power balance, which is unequal, which is defined by male domination and subordination of women. It is committed to collective or individual effort to fight against any form of discrimination, oppression, injustice, subjugation, deprivation by one gender to the others. That is, earlier it was a man against women, but now we are talking about all genders. Feminism has also expanded its horizon. Marxism, which sees as a principal contradiction as a class-based exploitation, and the tools which are used are historical materialism, focusing on the material reality, production processes, production relations, generations. The discourse analysis, I told you how Foucault and Derrida and postmodern scholars, they challenge the dominant discourse. This thing, and you have intersectional analysis. It's a Crenshaw. She came up with this whole thing of approach of intersectionality, because it is not one particular identity or one particular social location. When you say that I am a teacher, but I am also a housewife, I am also a mother, I am also a community member of the community. Okay, I am also a social activist. So these are the multiple identities we have. I also have a caste location. I also have a location of being in the urban area. I have also location of knowing English language, which majority of Indians are not confident to speak about. So this kind of intersectional vulnerabilities and intersectional privileges that we have, we need to keep into consideration while analyzing. Research protocols of main thing is the ethics, that you are not going to harm people who are involved in your research, protecting your respondent, very important. In cultural studies, ethnic studies, Dalit studies, disability studies, gender studies, women's studies, epidemiological, so many epidemiological studies happened during the pandemic, and now also it's happening, because and these epidemiological studies are done with the interdisciplinary. All these studies are done with interdisciplinary perspective. So there are sociologists, there are doctors, there are public health experts, there are legal experts, all of them. So that they are also now in all such studies, you see a lot of multidisciplinary, transdisciplinary component constitution of the research team. Cross-disciplinary studies where the research and creative practices, so you are involved, you are using, say, person like Paramita Vora, who makes films. Okay, I think Dr. Shalu has also shown her films. She would use the creative practices if she's making a film on child marriage, or if she's making a film on consent, or if she's if you see Deepa Dhanraj's film, something like War, where she has given the whole history of population control program in our country. So there are creative practices. There are women who are doing the drawing, they are doing role play, they are free-flowing discussion is there. That is documented by the researcher. And it is a cross-disciplinary because you have an artist, you have a filmmaker, and you also have a sociologist, and you have a ground level activist. So this kind of thing, so it comes out in the form of a report, it can come out in the form of a poster, it can come out in the form of a short video or a film. Interdisciplinary research involves two or more different areas of knowledge. Sociologists and economists are working together. For example, the studies on the agrarian situation, declining work participation of women. It is not only just the statistical analysis of data given by NSSO or NFHS or census, which talks about this many percentage decline. No, if you read Towards Equality report, you can realize that how interdisciplinary approach can give you various reasons for declining work participation. It can be the issue of safety, it can be the issue of mechanization and automation, which is displacing women because women are not given skill training. It can be the issue of mobility, that there is not safe transport from home to the factory or the workplace. That can be the reason. It can be the reason of elderly care and child care, because with the population changes, now we have a more elderly people, less young population, because the fertility rate has gone down drastically. 20 states have a below stabilization fertility rate. Couples are producing less than 2 children. So when you have a population pyramid which is top heavy, what happens? You have a more elderly care, and the life expectancy has increased in last 75 years of independence. People are surviving even in their 90s. Who will look after them? So that can also be the reason for declining work participation. So you need to have a multi-pronged approach to understand the phenomena. Clinical and public health practices in that also. Why in an area like there is a study done by TISS on MWARD, human development. You have a government hospital, which is facilities are underutilized, and women are delivering. We have a highest number of home deliveries in that particular MWARD. Women are, even in their labor, they would not take rickshaw, which would just cause them only minimum fare. to go to Shatabdi Hospital, but why do they? And then it was the study which brought out that the tenements are so fragile. They even don't have a pakka door. They don't have so when they go away for delivery and they are hospitalized for 4 days, when they come back, everything is stolen, including their stove and utensils and clothes and whatever little furniture they have in the 10 by 10 tenement. And that's why they say that even for security of our own, we are ready to undergo pain, but we will not have a delivery. And so mortality rate is also extremely high in M ward. So all these things could come out mainly because the researcher had actually been, they had dirtied their legs, and they had also been in that particular this thing, very closely observing what is the life of women in that particular area. So it is very community-based intervention. What kind of changes does it make? So you have studies, action research studies done by that. What was the situation before the action research project started, and what happened? What kind of better qualitative indicators that emerged because of the action research in terms of infrastructure, in terms of Pakka road, in terms of starting of a health center, in terms of starting of a school, in terms of census authorities going to that place and just providing data on that, because so many people are left out from data analysis and data. They are not netted in the data system. Transdisciplinary research is about the research that integrates and moves various disciplinary approaches. For example, if you do work on domestic violence, okay, so you are also as a sociologist, what would you do? You would socioeconomic background from of the survivors of violence, what kind of needs they have, checklist of the needs when they are driven out. Do they have children or not? When they are thrown out of their in-laws' place, where will now the children get admission? So all that things you will be doing. But what is the mental state of that person? Why that person is behaving certain way? The person who helps her the most, she distrusts that person because all along she has seen only brutalization. So even the psychologist and the counseling becomes very important. So you have a psychology person, you have a sociologist, and you also have a doctor, because she has to be provided medical assistance because she has been violated, that there are bruises and attacks on her body. So one-stop crisis center, when it does it, action research like Dilasa has done a massive research. You can download their research reports from their website on Dilasa and Sehat website. These are the transdisciplinary researches. Even the research is on mental health, that there are social determinants of mental health. Nobody is born mad. Nobody is born this thing. That was the understanding earlier, that there is something in her genes or his genes that everyone in that family is mad. Now, what we talk about the social psychology. There are social determinants, which are the triggers which are creating mental health problem. So that's why you try to bring sociology, medical science, and psychology. Multidisciplinary research is informed by different disciplinary perspectives and methods, and which are brought together to address common problem of an issue. So we have seen that during pandemic, so many researches were done where there were experts from variety of disciplines. Now, qualitative researchers view themselves as the primary instrument of collecting data. So you don't have interview schedule is not your primary instrument. You as a person are. So qualitative research can be done by remote control. So none of you will be able to do research by remote control. Okay, I will tell my neighbor, or I'll ask my student, or I'll ask my colleague to collect data for me. No, because then it will immediately be caught in the report, because what you have seen, your personal involvement is very important. Then only you will get language. Because even when we were told to write report on the basis of domain language, I said nothing doing. Without going to the field, we can't write the report, because it won't have a flavor. It will be a dead statistics and the statistical analysis, which is not going to help government in terms of intervention strategy on those 375 blocks, which the Chief Minister wanted. No, so it is very important to know. And so they rely partly and entirely on their feelings, because when you are there, You see, what you hear, what you smell, what you feel, all that comes in your report, your impressions, your judgments. So your field notes are extremely important, no? And those field notes in our times, all our research supervisors would see to it that we wrote the field notes on the same day. Before going to bed, we had to fill. And as soon as we reached the office, our directors would first thing would be asked for debriefing, that what all you have done in the field work, just give us your field notes. They are extremely important. If you see EPW, so many researchers have shared their field notes. Field notes are as important as, and so many nuanced understanding emerges from the field notes. Qualitative research involves words. So words are very important. Proficiency on language, whichever language you write, in Marathi, Gujarati, Hindi, Urdu, English, but your words are your data. And usually smaller volume of participants, because you are going to intensively study this thing. And that's what has emerged in our one-to-one discussion on each project in the previous sessions, interactive sessions about research. So ethnographic research, life history interviews, discourse analysis, any of this method you can apply, and you can apply all methods also. The strength of the qualitative research is depth of understanding, reaching out where other methods cannot reach, to give meaning to the numbers. Because as I told you, the teacher would say, my children are very quiet, they are very obedient. But why are they obedient? Because we know that children are children. They also laugh, they dance, they make mistake, they joke. How come these children are subdued? They are not. So what that you can find out through your qualitative research. First of all, you have to build trust so that the children speak. That's what happens in the cases of POCSO also. When the child is withdrawn, what you have to do is build the trust so that children can speak about what they feel, good or bad. Limitations of qualitative research is representability. That when your sample is small, sometimes you may take 2 sessions, 3 sessions, 4 sessions, or you may have, even after being in the community for 3-4 days continuously, you may be able to interview, in-depth interviews, you may be able to do maybe 20-25, not more than that. So that has been the limitation of now, qualitative research demands in-depth social inquiry, capturing people's feelings, their perceptions, their emotions, based on their experiences and life situations. So even when the person, while speaking, chokes, emotions, becomes emotional, or tears come out, or become violent, all that has to go into the report. A detailed narrative. Research design evolves in course of research process, and you have to keep your eyes and ears and your brain open. You are not going with the set ideas. You are ready to understand. You are ready to modify. And that's why I think in so many cases, Dr. Arjun Kumar and Dr. Shalu Nigam said, first do the pilot. Okay, pilot. And in pilot, you see that are you getting saturation immediately? Because once you get saturation, you are not going to get new data. And then you'll have to change. You have to either revise your questionnaire, your revise of method of speaking. Like my student, when he was sending me during pandemic, he was sending me pictures and videos of his field work. And he was sitting on a chair, and all other women, agricultural workers, they were sitting on the floor, and he was asking them questions. They were answering only in yes and no. They were not even talking to him. And I said, how can you do that? It's a participatory action research. Either you get chairs for all of them, or you sit on the floor, and whatever work they are doing, you join them in their work. If they are, while speaking to you, if they're cleaning vegetable, or if they are playing with their babies with them, or they are cleaning grains, you also show solidarity. And you see what kind of data. They will see you as one of you. They will not see you as some Sarkari Babu who has come to collect information. And the quality of data changed. Okay, if you are respectful, if you suddenly go to somebody's place without asking permission, we middle class, do we allow anyone to enter in our house? How can you take people in tribal area and the working class area for granted and just enter into? Some of them don't even remove their chappals. In Indian culture, it is very important. to remove their chappals. It is in Indian culture, it is important to be respectful to the elders, call them up, speak with, just because they are poor, you just can't, or they are under your, they are poor, or they are come from the marginalized section, you can't call them as tu. So what kind of response you get in your research, or even covert or overt patriarchal bias, if you have, you go as a researcher and only I will talk to only head of the household, घर का मुखिया कौन है, and then you do mansplaining when women and young women and they are there, and you just bypass them, you behave as if they don't exist, ask question about them to the man of the household, you are not going to get good data. You are not even going to get understanding of under what are their challenges, no? So it is very important that being culturally sensitive, data in the form of objects, pictures, words, because if they are Madhubani painters who are making painting, or if they are doing tailoring work, or if they have drawn, children have drawn, when you are trying to do study on child psychology. So many children don't have words to speak about what happened to them. They draw certain things. So those symbols and drawing, understanding some words which they would speak, which they may not have a full sentence to say, but some words they speak. You have to be very sensitive to all this that emerges from your interaction and observation, both, not only interaction, but also observation. Researchers' ideologies and interpretation are extremely important, because if you go with an understanding that working women's children become delinquent, you will ask a question accordingly. You will just go and ask that child, are you happy that your mother is working? Child will start crying, oh, and then but if you think that everyone has a right to, mother's salary is very extremely important to the household, you would ask that child that, do you help your mother in housework because she's also working outside? Completely the focus and the direction of discourse changes, no? So your ideology interpretations are very important. Subjective involvement of researcher, you have to own this research. It is your work. You are not an observer. You are not a neutral person. That's what the positivism tells you, or neutrality. No, none of these disciplines, Dalit study, tribal study, women's studies, queer studies, they are neutral. We have an agenda of social transformation. Through our participatory research, we are trying to make the condition of human conditions better. And this research will be it has a transformative potential. Nuanced understanding about values, beliefs, emotions, behavior, formal and informal relationships, formal and informal roles, contradictions, places, stories, folklores, songs, diaries, letters, drawings, photographs, archives, media outputs, blogs, social media. So many reports, research reports have been constructed from the small videos which were shared during reverse migration, okay, about the condition of migrant in India. Then the researchers, they also took the metadata from the census and all, and also other existing researches. So I think in qualitative research, all these things are very important. The type of qualitative research, as I told you, it can be case study of an event or individual, social group, institutions. It can be theory inductive approach for treatment that, okay, I'm doing this research with the standpoint theory, or I'm doing this research, my research is informed, my worldview or the perspective or my epistemological understanding of Foucault's idea of postmodernism is guiding my research, okay? That can be this thing. You can have a phenomenological research, narrative experiences as they present themselves. You can have ethnography, where sociology of meaning, whatever is happening, as an ethnographer, you are trying to put meanings into it. You can have a historical research, like a collection and evaluation of data related to past events, whether it's a freedom movement or Champaran Satyagraha. There is an excellent study which has emerged, called Thumb Printed, where what made Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi into a Mahatma. Okay, it was a Champaran Satyagraha. And these three historians have come together. They are going to come out with a 3-volume on all the contracts which were signed by farmers in Champaran with the British East India Company and how exploitative situation was. And this thumb printed is an excellent historical where editors have written, they have actually reproduced those contracts from the archives. And they have also given exhaustive introduction about Gandhiji's role in this Champaran Satyagraha and how he, as a lawyer, he used his knowledge of a lawyer to study all the hundreds of contracts, scrutinize them, and he said how British East India Company was exploiting. Everything was one-sided, and how these farmers who were self-sufficient became a pauper. They did not even have 2 pairs of clothes. They did not have their own housing. They did not have even 2 square meal, and they did not have anything. There was for the children, there was a starvation situation. So I think this was a very important way in which this historical study is done. It is published by Navjivan publication in Ahmedabad, very affordable price also it has, but it's an excellent work called Thumb Printed. Exploration to understand reasons of the research, or qualitative researchers views themselves as the primary instrument for collection of data, and they rely partly or entirely on their own feelings, that I feel so strongly about child sexual abuse. I feel so strongly about women commuters problem. I feel strongly about women conductors problem in KSRTC. That becomes your starting point, because your involvement is complete. And then gray areas that remain outside the confines of predictive quantitative research, for example, violence, sexual harassment, mental health, the study on surrogacy, study on midwives, study on mental health, study on sex selective abortions, all of them. Only quantitative data is not sufficient. It just doesn't give you tools to change this reality. So observations, narratives, prolonged engagement, rich and thick description, they clarify biases, coherence, and consistency are very important. Qualitative research involves words, usually smaller volume of participants and reports, and that's why you have all these various methods which I use. Interactive interviews, written narratives, observation based on verbal and non-verbal. In so many cases, they don't speak when you do the prison study. Okay, and as a researcher goes into prison, you get the permission from National Commission for Women to study the do the research on qualitative research on women prisoners. There are so many studies done by Sehat, by Maharashtra State Commission for Women, by National Commission for Women. In so many cases where prisoner refused to utter a word, they were just continuously crying. So research that prisoner was so traumatized by extremely brutal experience of violence and counter violence, and then maybe so many of them are under trial. So maybe, but they were caught even though they were innocent, that they are languishing in prison for such a long period that they have lost hope in life. They have become totally withdrawn. So that is also non-communication. Non-communication also has to be, you have to read between the lines, no, that why they are not speaking through their body language. Are they shivering? Are they trembling? Are they crying? What are their facial expression? And then funnel approach, that you collect so much of data. Now you have to funnel it, whatever. So general research inquiry that you have done and data collection you have done, now you have to focus them, and then whatever is required for your research report, that you use it, which is called inductive method, narrow research question, broader research question, data collection, then broader question, and then conclusion. Ethnography, where very detailed social inquiry is being made. There also the data you collect is from objects and pictures and words, and also they deal with the local people's values. The types of action research, as I told you, they are case study, phenomenology, ethnography, interpretative research, and historical research, which collection of data. The strength of qualitative research is basically you are trying to find the meaning behind what you are seeing or observing or conversing. You are interpreting specific situation, specific relationship, and specific socio-economic cultural condition. In covert participation, like you don't have to ask for the permission. Like suppose if there is some procession going on and you are doing qualitative research, you don't have to ask for there are thousands of people in the rally, in the public meeting, and this thing. When there is an overt participation, permission is required. When you are going to the school, you are entering the school, you are entering the hospital premises, you are entering, you need a permission. Emphasis is on the process, because that process, how thickly you describe it, that is very important. So rigorous and systematic data collection, analysis at the same time, they are very important. So you have to maintain your field diary about when you went there, what you saw, what is your first impression as a researcher, as a human being, how all that you have to write. Rich narrative, deep cultural understanding, concepts and theories should grounded in data. And I think that cultural understanding also comes when you do the related reading of reports, articles in journals and books which are on the subject matter. So, and your reflexive, you as a researcher, how are you reflecting to what you are seeing, reading, watching, hearing, and being present in that particular situation. So intersectionality is a very important concept, extremely popular world over. Understanding how aspects of person's social, economic, and political identities combine to create different modes of discrimination or privilege. Examples of this aspect can include gender, class, caste, sex, race, skin color, ethnicity, sexuality, religion, disability, age, physical appearance, and height. Because you, as a short person, you will be treated differently by the bullies than if they see a tall, fat person. No? So that also goes. So it is very important to understand that these are the intersecting aspects which determine your predicament, your bargaining power, your position, and your standpoint. So we need to be sensitive to intersectionality, and they all, you can have multiple identities. That's why you can see how the different race and fertility are intersecting, gender identity and age are intersecting, gender identity, personality and age are intersecting, nationality, age and culture are intersecting. So this various intersecting reality, one has to be sensitive. In phenomenology, you focus on people's perception of the world. What are the structures of consciousness? This consciousness are also created by structures of patriarchy. It is the patriarchal system and structures which create your consciousness. It is the capitalist system and structures which create your consciousness about private profit or what are the public goods, because our previous speaker in the 18th session, he talked about the public good, our city's public good or our city's private property. Okay, so your structure of consciousness. Descriptive phenomenology is focused on the subjective experiences of individuals and groups, and the hermeneutic phenomenology, where the researcher interprets the meaning found in relation to the phenomena. Often these approaches, and currently you can see about the Manipur situation, you can see the hermeneutic phenomenology at its play. You read those articles, research papers, statements, public statements which are made by different stake groups and different vested interest. They are interpreting phenomena of what's happening in Manipur in their own way, different analytical frameworks. So grounded theory refers to the set of systematic inductive methods using particular facts and examples to form general rules and principles for conducting qualitative research aimed towards theory development. This analysis is provided focused, abstract, conceptual theories that explain studied empirical phenomena. For example, intersectional marginality. So many recent studies on Dalit studies and Dalit feminists have come up with. They are based on grounded theory, because earlier feminist understanding had not taken element of caste into their analytical framework. It was only focusing on patriarchy and power. So this it produces transcripts of interviews and read through small samples of text. Sharmila Rege's work on autobiographies of Dalit women, who were influenced by Baba Saheb Ambedkar, who had attended Mahad Satyagraha, and how that participation in Mahat Satyagraha was a life-changing experience of these poor Dalit women who became so conscious and started working for the community. They also wrote their anguish, their struggle when they entered into the schools, the daily experience of untouchability, exclusion, degradation, humiliation, and still how they persisted and emerged as leaders. That's a very, very important thing. And that from that, she comes up with the grounded theory of Dalit feminism. Identify potential analytical category. As categories emerge, pull together all data from those categories and compare them. Consider how categories are linked together. Category of education and health, and education and identity, education and ethnicity. How are they linked? Use the relations among categories to build theoretical models, constantly checking the models against data, especially against negative cases. Like there may be some negative cases that, okay, with all the efforts, there are some who say that I don't want to study. I'm happy what I'm doing. You must have seen that Batti Sannata, that movie, no? That the domestic worker's daughter has to be domestic workers, and then the mother challenges her. They said, no, you are not going to be domestic workers, and how she changes the mindset of a child who later on becomes the IS officer. So there may be negative cases in so many researches. So even focus on, okay. Present the results of analysis using quotes from interviews that illuminate the theory. They are called exemplars. And when you do study on social exclusion, economic hardship, reduced opportunities, restricted access, in that you have to focus especially on negative cases as well as what is the general response. There are some of the very excellent examples. You can download Esther Bosserup's book, Women's Role in Economic Development, which was a watershed so far as the new understanding on women and development came. It was written in 1972. Though she was an economist, she used the anthropological method. She lived with the people in the African countries. She had gone to understand, deconstruct the African masculinity. What she ended up finding out was women's role in subsistence economy. So identify research question, determine location of your research, formulate presentation method, acquire permission and access, observe and participate, interview, collect archival data, code and analyze your data, because your coding is not only about numbers and percentage. Coding has to be done of your words also. Okay, so very important. Then case study method, there are excellent example where the Leela Gulati was the one pioneering work she had done in the case study method. In the late 60s, she wrote a beautiful profile of a woman in the rice field, one day in the life of her paddy workers, no? And that became a very important, mind-boggling research, which also made that how case studies are extremely important in understanding the coming up with the policy interventions and programs. Another case study was The Space of Her Own, Personal Narratives of 12 Women. That is also very good. It was edited by Leela Gulati and Jasudra Bagchi. Leela Gulati was a anthropologist, sociologist, and Jasudra Bagchi was a literature and also teacher of English literature. Urvashi Butalia's study on Other Side of Silence, where women survivors of partition in India and Pakistan and Bangladesh, they are in-depth interviews of these women who were in their 80s, very old women, because they all were in 1947 partition took place, where they were young women or adolescent girl or maybe married women, and what are the problems that they faced. So that is also very good. Similarly, Kamala Bhasin and Ritu Menon have also done similar studies on partition. Now, participatory action research, in that the processes are, you gather, how do we gather information? How do we analyze them? How do we share information? And how do we act? And how do we reflect whether our action has improved the condition or deteriorate the condition? Has there been a backlash? Have they suffered more because of our effort? What has been the response? That is very important. So gender perspective in participatory action research, because many of you have chosen the subjects which are also demand gender analysis. So whatever working in the gender and development, they have also come up with the participatory approach in terms of, like, you do a participatory approach on domestic violence, and you also see the backlash that comes out, which we saw that people are asking for repeal of 498A, and how are you going to to provide the rebuttal to this kind of thing, that it should be repealed. So many times it happens that participatory action research is also used by the vested interest, by the powerful group, to completely deprive poor people, especially the study on low income group housing. They said, oh, but in any case, government builds the houses for them. But within 6 months or 1 year, they are not used to flat life. They go back to slum. So what will they scrap this low income group housing scheme? This was the approach which government took. When in the 70s, state was building low income group housing. Now they say SRA model, where slum rehabilitation model, where the state groups also will have, and now they are telling that builder will directly talk to the slum dwellers. They may give them monetary compensation, and there will be complete privatization of housing sector. So this time also, like sometimes, because there are so many studies done with participatory research by social activists and by the social workers. And corruption was a major corruption, leakage, selling of the flats. That was used. These arguments were used for total privatization. Let market decide the housing problem. No, till the time we got reverse migration happened. That was the mentality. Let market look after the housing sector, because if government gets into it, there'll be bureaucratic bungling and corruption. See, so many studies have shown it. No? Now, field research method in that, one is a consciousness raising method, as I told you about Ivan Ibelich and Paulo group. You can maintain group diaries. There was a very good study done by Dandekar School of Political, Gokhale Institute of Political Economy, where women were asked to write their life. Me by because I am a woman. So these diaries were this thing, and diaries and they wrote the essay, and this essay they were asked to post it to the institute. Thousands of essays were received in Marathi, and the researchers with Bhagwat's job was to analyze what these essays talk about of a condition of a woman in Maharashtra, which fed into, it was a thick report came out in Marathi, where around 600-700 pages. So, and it also helped in coming up with the women's policy in Maharashtra, of government of Maharashtra, 1994. Maharashtra was the first state to come out with the policy. Dramatic role play, role reversal, role play. There are issues like violence and all. People don't have words. Children don't have words. You ask them to act out. So that is that. Genealogy, network tracing, like Dabbawala study, Bombay's Dabbawala, and now they have started similar Dabbawala model in London also. So Dabbawala study was so inspiring. It went on a genealogy, that why a particular community from Maharashtra it gets into this chain of Dabbawala. What are their codes? How they are transferring thousands of lunch boxes throughout the city without mixing this thing and without any kind of a bungling. So that is a genealogical study. Non-authoritative community-based research, where you go with humility that you are trying to learn, and this thing, conversation and dialogue, using your intuition and writing associatively. Whatever you observe, you use your intuition. And then write associatively, you identify with that. Identification instead of keeping distance. Studying unplanned personal experiences. If even in your concept note, there may be certain things which you did not, which you had not even thought about. But after going to the field, you realize that these are the problems. As we realized that we had never thought that people don't accept official letter, thinking that it is arrest warrant. That we came to know only when we went to the field. No? Photography or talking pictures techniques. There is a very good study done by historian analyzing the photographs of families in colonial India in the freedom movement in the post-colonial India, just to understand the status of women. It's a very good, Patricia Kaplan has done this study. It's a historical qualitative analysis. Speaking freely into the tape recorder, don't interrupt your speaker, the respondent, just let them speak whatever. They may go off tangent also, but allow them to continuously speak. And when essay type questionnaire, ask them to write essay on particular this thing, as they did in a research, which was the uprooted. They asked the research which they did. They asked women and girls to write an essay. My favorite thing in life. Most of the girls, adolescent girls, they wrote that I wish I could continue my study, and that helped the researchers to put forward this demand to the local authorities to come up with the bridge courses, and so that they can be, again, those who had dropped out of school, they could get back to the school system. Ontology and epistemology, they are very, so ontology is the understanding that how does the world consist mostly of social order or constant change? So how does world function? When you talk about epistemology, it refers to our assumption about best way to study the world. Should we use an objective or subjective approach to study social reality? Research process, observation phase, rationalization phase, and validation phase, and also like, well, I can see this, the whole ontology and epistemology of this report, which Indian Social Institute in Bangalore has come up with, working with the migrants beyond COVID-19 pandemic. That is an example of that. Now, the strengths and weaknesses of qualitative and quantitative approach. If you do the comparative analysis, the focus of qualitative research is quality of data. Quantitative research is on numbers and percentages. Data in qualitative research is in terms of words, sentences. In quantitative, it is numbers and percentages. Instruments of qualitative research are researcher, interviews, observation, documentation, questionnaire. In quantitative data, you have a test and observation questionnaire. In qualitative data, your sample is small and non-random. In quantitative data, you have a large and random sampling. Design in qualitative research is flexible, while in quantitative research, your design is predetermined. Aim of the qualitative research is to understand the depth of the problem, while in quantitative, what you want is what is a generalizable approach. What are the highest percentage in what is happening? So generalization is very important. Findings in qualitative research is comprehensive, richly descriptive, while in quantitative data, it is a precise number, precise percentage, and numerical. Now, most of the researchers do triangulation. I think many of you are also going to do triangulation in your research. Method to enhance the validity and reliability of qualitative research, because its small sample is there. So accuracy of interpretation confirms the data collected is not due to chance or circumstances, as data is collected from multiple sources in multiple ways, and collection of varied nature of data in multiple ways from multiple subjects, multiple sources, and multiple strategies. Okay, so that's why triangulation method is currently very popular. So you can have a data triangulation, you can have an investigative triangulation, you can have a theoretical triangulation, you can have a methodological triangulation. So triangulation of a quantitative and qualitative method is a part of a multi-strategy design. So this is the whole spectrum of data analysis in quantitative and qualitative analysis that you have, which you can apply in your research. And the strength of qualitative research is, as I told you earlier also, it does the rigorous and systematic data collection, and also rich narrative and deep cultural understanding it projects. And it is a reflexive award, because researcher is personally involved. The reflection of researcher also comes out in the report. Limitations, as I told you, there are small sample. It can be non-representative. It can also show the bias. It can be extremely time-consuming, and you don't have that kind of a massive resources to do to invest in one particular this thing if you want to take a large sample. But at the same time, it has a trustworthiness, credibility, transferability, dependability, and conformability in terms of depth of the information that you get. Mixed methods is very popular, as I told you, where you are mixing, you do the triangulation. There are excellent examples such as Shram Shakti report. You can download it from the website, where quantitative metadata is also used, and mass in-depth qualitative analysis is also available. It is a macro analysis of women in the Indian economy. UNDP reports are also examples of mixed method. They also put the case studies and the qualitative data in the boxes along with the this thing. When you write your paper, I think Dr. Simi Mehta is going to, the next session is by her, but I would just briefly say that it's an introduction, literature review, theory, research question, processes, empirical presentation, research and theoretical discussion, and the conclusion recommendation. And the areas of further research also you can suggest. These are some of the references. All of them are in public domain. I had also shared the link, which can be downloaded. PDFs can be downloaded. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for the enlightening insights. Your expertise and knowledge has truly broadened our understanding in this area. I request Advocate Dr. Shalu Nigam to share her remarks.
In fact, it was very, thank you, ma'am, for such a rich and, wonderful presentation. There is nothing like, it has resolved many of our questions, which may not come up, or, if people have in mind, they couldn't ask, but I think this presentation may have answered to many of their questions. But I just want to share, my just experience when initially I started working as a researcher in MSW, as you know that, we are being taught that, okay, you have to go to the field. So you should have, eyes and ears open, and you should have an antenna on your head. So as to be aware of what are the things which are happening on the ground. And I remember once when I go to the, we have been taken to a village, and the kind of data we are, we're asked to go to the houses. And people were, just observing from, top to down, that, why you don't have sindoor, why you are not married, and all those kind of questions that, you're not wearing Mangal Sutra and all. So these kind of questions do come up. And I remember one of the respondent, she was from, from different caste, and she tried to, to test or try the kind of trusting relationship. She offered us tea, just thinking that maybe, because they are coming from different kind of background, they may not take tea from our household. So, those kind of things also, I remember, it all, comes during, field work. So this is all I think I have to say, again, a very wonderful presentation. Thank you for that. And I think, yeah, surely students may have some questions, so we can take up that.
Thank you, ma'am. We'll take up questions from the audience. Please raise your hand if you have any questions.
CBG has joined.
Simi ma'am will not be joining, ma'am. We'll move with Shalu ma'am.
Shalu ma'am, okay, fine. Oh, then I think if they have anything about the report writing and all, they can ask question about it to both of us, because that session, in a way, I have covered most of it. How to write the research.
Ma'am, let me ask a few questions to go forward. Ma'am, when we are doing a lot of activities while we are doing the qualitative research, so how do we plan writing the report together? Because it can take forever. Like whenever we do PhD or other degree courses also, there is always this thing that while we are doing research, so report पे कब काम करेंगे, पहले ये कर ले या वो कर ले. So how to take care of that and how to manage that? That's also a skill. Can you please elucidate on that also? So for the benefit of the participants.
Yeah, I think that is why time management is very important. And that's why I think even in our interactive session, we have been telling that if you have only 1 month, time management is very important. And certain things you can do simultaneously. And now because of computer and smartphones, so many things have become very easy. We had to earlier, we had to go with our field diary and we had to go with, take things in the cards and all. Now that is not there. Like you can start taking notes on your laptop or even on your this thing, smartphone. And the thing is that while doing research, when you are doing review of literature, you can also think, start thinking while doing that work only, you can also come up with some of the questions. When you are doing your gap analysis while reading various reports for your unrelated subject, you can also find that this, no one else has done that work, but I will include that in my research. So that is possible. You may also get idea of writing your introduction while doing review of literature. So I think time management is very important. So writing introduction, then doing review of literature. Don't wait for chronology. You can do simultaneously and now make different files of different chapters and start work including that. Other thing is that while doing reference work, see to it that you write complete reference, very important, because later on then again you will have to go what. So how to do the referencing, about that, I think we need a sense, whichever style you use, APA style use or whichever. So name of the author, name of the title, number, the volume of journal, volume number of journal, issue number of journal, pages of this thing. And if there is a web link, the way I have given this, reference in my PPT. Same way, I think you will have to start make one file only of referencing in a alphabetic order. So don't leave everything to the report writing stage. Even in from the very beginning, when you are from day one, whatever information you have, start classifying them into this 7 section: introduction, research methodology, field data, data analysis, discussion, conclusion, recommendation, and bibliography or references, whatever you call. So start as and when you are doing your work, start recording that in those 7 files. That is the best way to come up with our final report before deadline. That's how I go about it. So never postpone your work. Plus broad timeline also you will have to keep, that what will be my deadline. I have to finish my field work in 10 days. Whenever I get any qualitative data, I must write down the same thing before I go to bed. That pledge you will have to take, because that will be the fresh, you will be able to give the best this thing. You will get best words when things are so fresh, because again you will have a next experience. By then this will go in the background. So it is very important that to do the time management, prompt immediate recording of whatever things you have done. And while recording also, whenever you are reflecting on whatever you have seen or conversed or jotted down, whatever analytical ideas also come into your this thing in your mind, that also you start incorporating in a chapter on discussion, research discussion. No, so that is a best way to do this. Yeah. When you have 3 years or 4 years, then you can have a timeline of say 3 months for introduction or another 6 months for research, review of literature. And review of literature is an ongoing process. Even when you submit your synopsis, at that time also expert may suggest, you haven't included this, better you read that. No? So that be prepared for that. And then say field work for 1 year. That luxury you people don't have, because you have a very strict deadline of 1 month. So that's why time management is extremely important. Don't postpone anything.
Yes, ma'am. For even a PhD, people takes such a long time. That's never enough.
No, and in my time, there was 85% failure rate. People would take fellowship. Even among those who got UGC scholarship, 85% were not submitting their thesis. I'm talking of late 70s when I was this thing. So that was and after that, there was a lot of rethinking done by UGC and ICSSR for those who failed to submit their thesis on time, they have to return money with interest. And I know of cases where people had to return money along with the interest, current rate, market rate of it. Now, funders are also very strict, and they have everyone is very, very particular about timelines. So many of research funding comes along with the timeline. They only send the timeline, no? How you will finish. And they are also demanding progress report. Some demand quarterly report, some demand monthly progress report. Even when the government departments and UGC you have to send, for PhD, you have to send 6 monthly report. ICSSR demands quarterly report. And ministerial researches which are given to you, they demand report every month, or it all depends on the duration of the research. You have to progress.
A lot of people try to make it their pet project and work according to their timeline. I know people, and others who are taking 12 to 15 years and not completing, just going on and on about it. My PhD guide was UGC and ICSR both chairman. So he made me complete in 2.5 years.
Correct.
Everything.
Yeah.
And that was doable. I published a lot of things, got a lot of time. So time management is key. More than that, your commitment and passion is also key. So if you'll make your own commitment, or research is an independent activity, so you have to be motivated. If
it's a small world. When it comes to research, it is a small world. Once you cheat, or once you don't submit your report on time, you're blacklisted. After that, you won't be. Gone are the days where you could just continuously get research report. Now the monitoring and evaluation are so timely. They are done. So you have to be very, very, and it's a very, now it has also become a competitive. I know when I do the screening for a UGC or ICSSR or that intra IIT, they send their research proposals and all. You get hundreds of them, out of which, say, if you're getting 800 research proposals, you have to select some 20 or so. So it's a very competitive also. World has become research, especially the prestigious research grants have become quite competitive. And now it is a global competition, because everything is there on the website. You have to upload all proposals on the website, and you are competing globally.
Yes, and if the research is good, your hard work will reflect in a lot of publication and other things. So it's more of commitment and that. So so we can invite some question if anyone have any question.
Yeah.
So I'll try to reiterate again that time management is key, and if you'll be positive, then you can do it. It's it's a hard work, so you don't have to shy away from it. That you are busy and you are that. So everyone is busy. That's given, but it's more of your hard work and your commitment that will reflect. So that's given, and it has to be an independent activity. We are for this program, we are here to help you, enable you to have your research and also get it published in renowned journals. So it has to be also public, given all the other things. Any participant have any questions? We can mix the session of Shalu ma'am also.
And also, like, I would like to supplement with this, that it is like swimming. Once you become a good researcher, it will always stay with you wherever you go. Whether you become an engineer or architect or lawyer or this, like this, such excellent legal researches are coming out where they are creatively telling the students that they give them, you download any judgment from Manusmriti, and just rewrite it. Had you been with gender sensitive, or had you been empathetic to the poor, or this, how would you have given the judgment? It's such an exercise that also comes from your qualitative research methodology, that you write associatively, you identify with the issue, and you try to bring change. So it will always remain with you wherever you are, even in your any community based, like you see so many now people are citizen environmentalists are there. What do? They do research, they create memorandum, they create their report, they create public opinion, they take it to the corporate. Because once you have got that skill, that will always remain with you. It will always be helpful lifelong. It will be helpful to your even day-to-day survival struggles. Yes, sir.
those analytical skills you can develop, once you have got into this kind of research thing, that will help you to analyze, to read in between the lines, to analyze the situation in depth. Those kind of skills are, you can get from doing research. So that is the important thing.
Yes.
Right.
Thank you, ma'am. Moving forward, I would request Advocate Dr. Shalu Nigam to commence the interactive discussion session 5. Advocate Dr. Shalu Nigam, Visiting Senior Fellow IMPRI, Advocate, Author and Researcher, Gender and Human Rights. Welcome, ma'am, and over to you.
So, in fact, today I was wondering that we can take a question. So I don't think so. Like, people are coming with some questions about research. Or you can, you want to share your, whatever you are doing. That is also helpful. Would somebody like to share what they are doing? What are the problems they are facing?
Yeah, that would be really interesting. Yeah. Even if you're not current research, any other research that you have done, even those experiences you can share.
Yeah, even about your, if you have read about some of the literature you have gone through, so maybe some interesting studies you may find out. So that also you can share. What is happening today? No one's sharing.
I know.
Or we can have discussion on some other issue if you are ready. We can talk about it.
Yeah. Are they not able to join or what? Is it rain or what? Only let's see. Yesterday also Jamila ji was not there, no? She did not share her research report.
Yeah, I think she was there, but she has not shared her.
Last time ma'am did not share.
Wait.
But Jamila ji is here. Would you like to share? Jamila ji? Chehek? Kumari Dikshita ji? Mohammed ji, have you thought of anything? Did your pilot? Vivek ji? Charu ji has joined today. Charu ji, are you well?
They all are muted.
No, they can unmute and
yeah, they can. Jamila ji is unmuted. She is unmuted. It shows.
हाँ मैम.
हाँ बोलिए अभी आपका कहाँ तक आया कैसे?
मैम कुछ लोगों का हमने इंटरव्यू लिया है जो स्ट्रीट वेंडर है उनका लिया है.
हाँ.
और उसके कुछ क्वेश्चन मैम आपसे भाई बात करना था कि हमने जो सवाल लिखे हैं वो मैं आपको शेयर करती हूँ.
हाँ.
उसमें आपने उस दिन मुझे 4 सजेशन किए थे कि इनको सरकारी योजनाओं में कहाँ पे लाभ मिल रहा है क्या, उसको उसके बारे में सवाल थे. वो चारों मैंने ऐड किया है.
हाँ.
आप भी उसमें और
क्वेश्चनर पढ़ लीजिए ना जी. क्वेश्चनर ही पढ़ लीजिए. वक्त है अपने पास. हाँ.
अच्छा मैं अभी पढ़ूं क्या?
हाँ अभी पढ़िए.
सॉरी मैं अभी थोड़ा बाहर हूँ.
अच्छा.
तो मैं आपको शेयर कर देती हूँ मैम.
हाँ पूरे एम्प्री लर्निंग में कर दीजिए तो हम सब पढ़ सकते हैं ना. हाँ
ठीक है चलेगा मैम. आप देख लीजिए अगर उसमें और कुछ जोड़नी है तो फिर ओके मैं जोड़ दूंगी.
हाँ
और मैंने जिसका सवाल मैंने कुछ लोगों से जो इंटरव्यू किया उसमें से भी एक मैं आपको भेजूंगी, आप वो भी देख लीजिए। अगर और कुछ जोड़ना होगा तो ओके।
अच्छा, एक इंटरव्यू आपने जो किया है वो।
जी जी जी।
अच्छा, आप रिपोर्ट अंग्रेजी में देंगे या हिंदी में?
मैम मैं हिंदी में दूंगी, अगर अंग्रेजी
हाथ
में चाहिए तो फिर मैं लिखवाना पड़ेगा किसी और
नहीं
से।
तो हिंदी में आप हाथ से लिख के स्कैन करेंगे या आपको टाइपिंग आती है हिंदी की?
मुझे टाइपिंग आती है मैम अच्छी
अच्छा,
तरीके
नो
से।
प्रॉब्लम। ओके ओके, तो फिर हमको ईमेल से भेज, बराबर।
ठीक है मैम।
साहित्य कुछ पढ़ा आपने इसके बारे में?
मैम मैंने नहीं पढ़ा है अभी तक कुछ साहित्य। आपने जो भेजा हुआ था ना कि वो क्राइटेरिया किस तरीके से करनी चाहिए, क्या है वीडियोस और इंटरव्यूज, वो अब मैंने पूरा पढ़ा है।
हाँ
तो कुछ वीडियोस भी चाहिए और कुछ इंटरव्यूज भी चाहिए,
हाँ।
तो वो मैंने देख ली।
लेकिन हमने जो शेयर किया है इस पे डॉसियर में, वो देख लिया है ना आपने?
नहीं
आप
मैम
लोगों-
मैंने नहीं देखा है।
लेकिन सभी पार्टिसिपेंट्स को भेजा था ना, क्या क्या पढ़ना है हर एक लेक्चर के बारे में, वो मटेरियल तो हमने भेजा है ना आपको?
मुझे नहीं मैम, मेरे को मिला नहीं है शायद। मैंने चेक किया मेल, मेरे पास जो आए थे वो फॉर्म आया हुआ था जो,
हाँ।
वो तो मैंने प्रिंट निकाल कर वो पढ़ा है मैंने।
अच्छा अच्छा, तो ये रीडिंग मटेरियल नहीं मिला आपको?
नहीं मैम।
तो आज ईमेल कर देंगे उनको, इम्प्री से आपको ईमेल कर देंगे रीडिंग
ठीक है मैम।
मटेरियल। हाँ
जी जी
ठीक है।
जी 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 जी, थैंक यू।
यस दीक्षिता जी, आप कुछ देना चाह रहे?
जी मैम, एक्चुअली मुझे मैंने अपना रिसर्च शुरू कर दिया है, तो इंटरव्यू लेना शुरू किया है। और मेरा रिसर्च टॉपिक जो है वो है अर्बन ट्रांसपोर्टेशन ऑफ रांची, केस स्टडी है, जिसमें आई एम फोकसिंग कि ऑटो, जो डीजल ऑटोज और ई रिक्शा की अवेलेबिलिटी वो बहुत ज्यादा है, बट बस नेटवर्क उतनी डेवलप नहीं है सिटी के अंदर। सो मैं उसके चैलेंजेस और जो इश्यूज है उस पर फोकस कर रही हूँ। तो मैंने इंटरव्यू लेना शुरू कर दिया है कम्यूटर्स से, और बाकी जो स्टेक होल्डर्स एनालिसिस किया है मैंने, बाकी स्टेक होल्डर्स से भी शुरू करना चाहती हूँ। तो आई वांटेड टू नो कि वो लेटर ऑफ सपोर्ट जो है वो कब मिलेगा, जिसके थ्रू आई कैन रीच द पब्लिक ऑफिशियल्स एज वेल एज सून एज पॉसिबल।
अच्छा ठीक है,
आप अपना ड्राफ्ट बना दीजिए और ड्राफ्ट इम्प्री से शेयर कीजिए,
पायलट
उसमें मॉडिफिकेशन करके उनके लेटर हेड में आपको भेज देंगे सिग्नेचर करके।
भेज
लेकिन
दें।
आपको क्या रिक्वायरमेंट है वो आप वो ड्राफ्ट भेज दीजिए।
ओके मैम।
व्हाट आर योर रिक्वायरमेंट्स, टॉपिक ऑफ योर, टाइटल ऑफ योर रिसर्च, इसको
Okay.
कौन से अधिकारी को आप
हम्म,
कि यू आर एन ऑथोराइज्ड रिसर्च स्कॉलर ऑफ इम्प्री, और फिर वो आपको, आप उसे दिखा सकते हैं। उसको लेमिनेट कर देना, प्रिंट आउट निकाल के लेमिनेट कर देना, ताकि बारिश में गंदा ना हो जाए। यू विल हैव टू यूज इट फॉर 1 मंथ। या करेक्ट।
ओके, तो इम्प्री से शेयर कर दूं मैं ड्राफ्ट बना करके?
ड्राफ्ट बना के शेयर कर।
नहीं दीक्षिता जी, हम शेयर कर देंगे आपको वो करके। आपका फाइनल टॉपिक वी विल शेयरिंग गूगल फॉर्म, जिसमें
Okay.
कि सब सारे डिटेल्स हम ले लेंगे। आपने पायलट कर लिया दीक्षिता जी?
बेसिकली सर आई हैव जस्ट स्टार्टेड द इंट्रोडक्शन पार्ट, लेकिन फॉर्मली स्टार्ट नहीं किया है। कल ही सारा चीज मतलब माइंड मेकअप कर लिया कि हाँ इस पे ये सारी चीजें करनी है। एक इंटरव्यू किया है, इतना ही किया है अभी।
ओके ओके, तो पायलट कर लिया ना?
यस सर।
मतलब टूल फाइनल कर लिया?
टूल तो सर रिसर्च मेथोडोलॉजी क्वालिटेटिव ही होगी, क्वांटिटेटिव नहीं होगी, तो यही है।
नहीं वो मतलब टूल इज मोर लाइक, जो भी आपके सवाल होंगे ना, एक सेमी स्ट्रक्चर्ड आप क्वेश्चन नया टाइप कुछ बनाएंगे ना, लेटर से आप जिससे भी बात कर रहे हैं उसका नाम, वो सब आप देखेंगे ना, गाइडलाइंस डॉक्यूमेंट में है कुछ उनके डिटेल्स, आप कहाँ किस डेट टाइम पे कुछ वो नोट करेंगे ना, और 4-5 जो अहम सवाल पूछेंगे।
सर मैंने क्वेश्चनर बनाया कम्यूटर्स के लिए और उसी के ऊपर एक इंटरव्यू किया है।
ठीक है, मैं वही बोल रहा था, दैट इज योर टूल राइट?
ओके राइट।
क्योंकि आप सब जगह जाके अलग अलग सवाल तो नहीं पूछेंगे ना,
नहीं
आप
पूछ सकते।
अतिरिक्त सवाल आप पूछ सकते हैं कुछ, लेकिन
ओके
तो क्योंकि दैट क्वेश्चन विल गो इन द एनेक्चर ऑफ योर रिपोर्ट।
ओके सर।
Are you
Okay,
getting?
yes, I have formed a questionnaire of 10 questions to be asked from the commuters, and I'm developing another questionnaire for the public officials as well.
अलग अलग बनाएंगे क्वेश्चन?
2 या 3 फॉर्मेट रहेगा सर, क्योंकि पब्लिक ऑफिशियल से क्वेश्चंस थोड़े डिफरेंट होंगे और कम्यूटर्स के इश्यूज थोड़े अलग होते हैं, इसलिए
डिफरेंट होंगे। इसको ना हम रिसर्च में जैसे कम्यूटर्स वाले को इंटरव्यू कह लेना हम, और जैसे पब्लिक वाले जो ऑफिशियल्स है ना उसको हम कहते हैं की इन्फॉर्मेंट इंटरव्यूज। हाँ, KII कहते हैं उसको।
ओके ओके
इंटरव्यू की इन्फॉर्मेंट हुए ना इंटरव्यूज, तो उसको आप ऐसा मेथोडोलॉजी में पुट कर सकते हैं। आप कंप्यूटर्स के साथ कहीं FGD भी करके देखिए दीक्षिता जी, मतलब जहाँ पे कुछ लोग होंगे ना, 3 4 5 लोग।
ओके ओके सर,
FGDs, हाँ FGDs में भी अच्छा आता है, तो उससे क्या होगा ना, आपका सैंपल को आप कम कर सकते हैं उधर।
ओके सर, आई
इस तरह का डीजल वाला वो ठीक है, वो तो लाइवलीहुड है ना, उसमें फाइनेंस भी मिल जाता है सबको इजीली। तो वो एक अहम पहलू होता है फॉर ई-रिक्शा और फॉर दैट अदर थिंग। बस वाला इज इम्पोर्टेंट थिंग, उसमें तो ऑफिशियल्स वगैरह ही बताएंगे।
यस सर, क्योंकि फ्यूचर प्लान्स कहीं पर भी म्यूनिसिपल की मैंने वेबसाइट विजिट करके देखा, बस उन्होंने प्रोजेक्ट का नाम मेंशन किया है बट उसमें डिटेल्स कुछ भी नहीं डाला है। तो अपकमिंग क्या प्लान्स है एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन के, आई वांट टू एक्सप्लोर दैट एंड नो दैट। यस, तो उनसे ही पता चल सकता है।
ठीक है, ठीक है, हम अभी वो शेयर करेंगे ना, फिर वो ये कर देंगे। ठीक है,
ओके सर।
दीक्षिता जी, आप कितने कंप्यूटर्स को इंटरव्यू करना चाह रहे हैं? मतलब अगर
मैम, मैंने स्टेक होल्डर एनालिसिस किया है, तो 5 स्टेक होल्डर्स हैं। 5 में से कम हर एक में मिनिमम 3 पीपल को मैं इंटरव्यू करना चाहती हूँ। पब्लिक ऑफिशियल में कोई एक भी अगर कोई हेड मिल जाते हैं तो दैट वुड बी इनफ फॉर मी, बिकॉज टाइम कॉन्स्ट्रेंट है। इट वुड टेक, हाँ इसीलिए, नहीं तो ज्यादा से ज्यादा मैं करना चाहती हूँ बट टाइम कॉन्स्ट्रेंट की वजह से I'll send a request to many people as I can, but उसमें से जितने का रिस्पॉन्स आता है उस पर डिपेंड होगा।
ठीक है।
अर्जुन जी, इनको लेटर जल्दी मिलना चाहिए ना।
लेटर दे देंगे, लेटर सबको चला जाएगा। वो एक फॉर्म है, सब लोग फिल कर देंगे ना, तो वो लेटर चला जाएगा। एक बार पायलट कर ले तो ज्यादा अच्छा रहेगा, बस उसी का प्रोसेस वाला वो एक बार चेक हो जाए।
उनकी डेडलाइन तो क्या है? 15 अगस्त की है।
हाँ हाँ, फील्ड वर्क कब से कब तक करेंगे वो भी हम ले लेंगे। फिर वो दीक्षिता जी ट्राई की फोन पे भी कुछ लोगों को कांटेक्ट कर ले। हाँ
यस सर, फोन पे भी ईमेल पे भी कोशिश रहेगी कि उन्हें मैं मेल करूं, और किसी ऑफिस में अगर विजिट करना है तो ऑफिस में भी करूंगी। मतलब आई ट्राई टू कॉन्टैक्ट देम थ्रू मतलब मेनी मीडियम्स जो भी अवेलेबल है।
मैनी मीडियम्स, यस।
हाँ
ईमेल में वेरी लेस पीपल विल रिस्पॉन्ड।
यस यस आई नो, बट क्या करें, मैं कोशिश करूंगी कि उससे भी अगर वो मिल जाए, अवेलेबल हो जाए तो।
यस यस यस।
आई ट्राई माय
अगर
बेस्ट।
आपको टॉप ब्यूरोक्रेट भी जवाब ना देना तो
जी
थोड़ा लोअर लेवल पे भी जाएंगे, वहां से अच्छा रिस्पॉन्स आता है,
जी
बिकॉज
जी मैं
दे स्टे इन दैट डिपार्टमेंट फॉर लॉन्ग। हाँ, 5-10 साल रहते हैं,
जी
ब्यूरोक्रेट 1 साल रहते हैं।
यस आई एम फोकसिंग ऑन दैट ओनली, क्योंकि नगर निगम और कलेक्ट्रेट ऑफिस का सारे चीज मुझे पता है कि हाउ टू अप्रोच देम। तो नीचे लोअर लेवल से ही मैं थोड़ा, जहां पर उनके पास सिग्निफिकेंट आंसर और मतलब करेक्ट आंसर जिनके पास अवेलेबल हो, वो वहां अप्रोच करने की कोशिश कर रही हूँ।
ठीक है, ठीक है। तो नगर निगम वाला तो कचहरी में हो गया, फिर वो ट्रांसपोर्ट वाले का ऑफिस धुरवा में है।
धुरवा में, प्रोजेक्ट बिल्डिंग में।
प्रोजेक्ट बिल्डिंग में है। और डोरंडा में भी है क्या? डोरंडा
तो वो आइडिया नहीं है, अभी 2 ही जगह मैं फोकस कर रही हूँ, कचहरी में, एक प्रोजेक्ट बिल्डिंग में। यहाँ पर हो जाए तो आई थिंक ऑफिशियल्स यहीं पर से सफिशिएंट मिल जानी चाहिए इन्फॉर्मेशन एज पर माई नॉलेज।
ठीक है, वहां पे फिर वो उसके पास में वो DC वाला ऑफिस भी है।
हाँ यस सर, कलेक्ट्रेट ही ऑफिस।
कलेक्टर वाले पे भी चेक कर सकते हैं। म्यूनिसपैलिटी में भी कुछ आप ऐसा करिए ना, कुछ उनसे भी ले लीजिए। जो मेयर डिप्टी मेयर है उनसे बात कर लीजिए ना।
ओके सर, ठीक है। मैं
मेयर वो है ना, क्या नाम है मैम का?
आशा,
हाँ, आशा लकड़ा जी से बात कर लीजिए ना।
हाँ आशा लग
हाँ, उनका नंबर ऐसे ही मिल जाएगा। और डिप्टी मेयर वो है ना, कोकर वाले एरिया वाले, क्या नाम है, उनसे फोन पे भी बात कर लेंगे तो बात हो जाएगी।
जी सर, संजीव विजयवर्गीय जो है,
संजीव
संजीव।
हाँ हाँ, दोनों से बात हो जाएगी, आपको अच्छा रिस्पॉन्स मिल जाएगा। और ना ऐसे ही वार्ड वाले कुछ लोगों से बात कर लेंगे, वो भी अच्छा हो जाएगा।
हाँ, मेरे वार्ड की कोई जो हेड है, हुसनारा नाम की वार्ड मेंबर है, उनसे मैं अप्रोच कर लूँ, उनका घर भी पता है।
बिल्कुल बिल्कुल।
उनसे मिली
और
हुई भी हूँ।
सीपी सिंह जी से भी मिल लीजिए।
सर आई ट्राई, सबसे मिलना तो शायद पॉसिबल
नहीं,
नहीं हो।
फोन पे ट्राई कर लीजिए। लेकिन अगर वो आशा लकड़ा जी या संजीव जी को बोल देंगे ना, मेरा नाम भी बोल देंगे, तो पहचान जाएंगे, जानते हैं मुझे।
ओके सर, ठीक है, फिर आपके रेफरेंस के थ्रू मैं ट्राई करूंगी कि उनसे मिल लूं।
इम्प्री भी बताएंगे ना, सारे लोग फंक्शन में भी आते हैं, रांची में अगर फंक्शन होता है ना,
जी जी जी।
हम बुला भी लेते हैं। आप
ओके ओके,
तो
ठीक
पहचान।
है। ठीक है,
संक्षिप्त में पूछिएगा, पूरा लंबा मत रखिएगा।
नहीं सर, कोर इशू ही पूछूंगी, बिकॉज
और
टाइम कंस्ट्रेंट है ना, तो
बिल्कुल,
जो मेरा फोकस रहेगा इसीलिए।
हाँ,
तो
बिल्कुल बिल्कुल।
8-10 क्वेश्चन पूछूंगी ही नहीं मैं, 2-3 क्वेश्चंस में ही आई
ये
ट्राई टू सम अप।
आशा लकड़ा जी अच्छा जवाब देंगे।
ओके सर।
हाँ, क्योंकि उनका टसल होता है पॉलिटिशियंस का, ब्यूरोक्रेट से, तो वो
राइट
के लिए अच्छे इश्यूज
राइट।
उठाते हैं, अच्छे अच्छे रिस्पॉन्सेस आएंगे। ठीक है। एनी
ठीक है।
अदर पार्टिसिपेंट्स? एनी अदर पार्टिसिपेंट्स वुड लाइक टू ऐड एनीथिंग? ठीक है मैम, तो वी विल शेयर वो जो फॉर्म्स हम शेयर करेंगे, सबसे फिलअप करवा लेंगे। और देन मैम विभूति मैम, शालू मैम, देन वी विल इंटरनली हम शेयर कर लेंगे जो भी रेलेवेंट टॉपिक होगा ना। तो जैसे LPPY हमारे जो एक्सपर्ट्स हैं, उनको भी वी कैन असाइन फेलोज को गाइड करने के लिए। जैसे कल डॉक्टर पूर्णिमा चौहान मैम से बात हो रही थी, तो शी वॉज वेरी इंटरेस्टेड कि क्या
हाँ।
इस टॉपिक में अगर किसी को गाइड कर दूं। तो जैसे दीक्षिता जी का है ना, अर्बन ट्रांसपोर्ट, वो पहले सेक्रेटरी भी थी हिमाचल में, तो उस तरह का भी वी कैन सी एज इट प्रोग्रेसेस। तो थोड़ा सब लोगों को गाइडेंस मिल जाएगा।
ठीक है, बराबर।
ठीक है ना? ओके, सो शैल वी
Yeah.
रैप? शालू मैम, डू यू वांट टू ऐड एनीथिंग?
ओके सर, मतलब उसको फिर नेक्स्ट टाइम हमारा इंटरेक्टिव सेशन भी नेक्स्ट वीक ही होगा। तो अभी तो पूरा फीडबैक के लिए टाइम है, सो दे कैन डू देयर फीडबैक, और बीच में अगर कोई चीज आती है सो ऑब्वियसली यू कैन कम बैक।
श्योर श्योर। ठीक है, बीच में एज एंड व्हेन रिक्वायर्ड वी कैन शेड्यूल, और या छोटे छोटे ग्रुप्स में भी वो कर लेंगे। बट समृद्धि विल गेट इन टच, आवर रिसर्चर्स एंड टीम मेंबर्स विल गेट इन टच, सबसे हम बात करते रहेंगे। लेटर्स वंस वी अप्रूव द टॉपिक, एक बार कॉन्फिडेंस आ जाएगा ना, क्योंकि लेटर विल आल्सो गो इन प्रोफेसर विभूति पटेल और शालू मैम के नेम पे, एक बार वो भी कंफर्म करते जाएंगे आपसे टॉपिक, तो हमें भी पता रहेगा आप कहाँ क्या कर रहे हैं, है ना? ठीक है, okay Harsha, we can go ahead with the wrapping up of the session.
Now I request Professor Vibhuti Patel to give her closing remarks for the session.
Yeah, I think in closing remarks, I would just like to summarize that as a researcher, when all of us are doing action research, we have to be totally, totally identify with the work that we are doing. There are various perspectives and various ideological positions that can inform your way of understanding and deconstructing the problem. There are multiple methods of doing your research in a qualitative way, in a participatory action research, which is a maybe case study or phenomenological study or hermeneutic phenomenological study, ethnography, and also the role play and various tools that you can use for your research. And you also have to do exhaustive review of literature, gap analysis, what others have not answered. You try to answer those queries in your research, and your research also has to, from the research findings, your policies, recommendations, and ideas for further probing of research can evolve. So we have gone into the details of all these important dimensions of qualitative and action research. And I think it will be helpful for your work. And I think whenever you have any questions or doubts, you are free to contact myself, Dr. Shalu Nigam, and Dr. Arjun Kumar, and whole research IMPRI team. Thank you.
With the chair's permission, we can go for the vote of thanks.
Please go ahead.
As we come to the end of day 4 of Law and Public Policy Action Research Fieldwork Program, an online National Monsoon School Program, a 1-month online Immersive Action Research Fieldwork Certificate Training Program, I, Harsha Quatra, researcher at IMPRI, Impact and Policy Research Institute, would like to propose the formal vote of thanks on behalf of IMPRI New Delhi. We are grateful to our experts for day 4, Professor Vibhuti Patel and Advocate Dr. Shalu Nigam, for taking out their valuable time and giving us an opportunity to learn from this online certificate program. We thank our chair, Professor Vibhuti Patel, and lead advisor, Advocate Dr. Shalu Nigam, for convening the session. We thank all of our participants who have raised pertinent questions and actively participated in today's deliberation. We look forward to welcoming you coming Friday, that is 28 July at 11:30 a.m. for our day 5 of this certification course by distinguished expert Sri Shailesh Gandhi. We are grateful if you're watching us later on YouTube or listening to us on our various podcasts or reading our publications. We hope you continue to join in future to our IMPRI Web Policy Talk and Web Policy Learning. Wishing you a good day. Thank you.
Thank you, Harsha.
Thank you, everyone.